Lesson 2.3 is subtraction of whole numbers and decimals, and the objective for this lesson is I can subtract whole numbers and decimals. We're going to take a look at the trade first subtraction method. This is the method that most of you have probably been using. We are going to start off by subtracting 463 minus 275. Now in this method you're going to start in your smallest place value first. So for this problem we're starting in the ones column. I know that if I have 3 of something, I cannot take 5 away. So I'm going to have to borrow from my neighbor. I'm going to have to trade. If I trade from the tens place, the 6 is going to become a 5. That 10 is going to come over and I'm going to add it onto the 3, so my 3 is now 13. Now I can subtract 13 minus 5. So if I come over here and do that, 13 minus 5 is 8. I come to my next column. I can't do 5 minus 7, so I borrow again, borrow from my neighbor or trade. The 4 becomes a 3. I add 10 onto my 5, so now that's 15. 15 minus 7 is 8. 3 minus 2 is 1. So let's take a look at another example right here. 67 minus 39. I know that if I have 7, I can't take 9 away, so I'm going to have to borrow from my neighbor. The 6 becomes a 5, and that 10 that I took away here, instead of being 67, it's now 57. So what I really did is I took away a 10. I'm going to add that 10 on to my 7. So my 7 is now 7 plus 10, or 17. Now I can subtract. 17 minus 9 is 8. 5 minus 3 is 2. And so I get my answer using that trade first subtraction method. If you take a look at Math Journal page 35, there are some other problems for you to practice. Some of those problems have decimals. Please remember that when you're subtracting with decimals, you line up the decimal. Let's take a look at number 2. This is a money problem. We know that money has dollars and cents. So I'm going to put 34. And if you want to use this grid, I'm going to give my decimal its very own box here just to make sure I keep it lined up. $34.68 minus $15.75. Please remember when you're setting up your subtraction problems, you also need to keep the larger number on top. We're going to be doing the larger number minus the smaller number. Alright, with the trade first method, I'm going to start in my smallest place value. So for this, it's the hundreds place. 8 minus 5, I can do that. I can have 8 and take 5 away. It gives me 3. In my tens place, 6 minus 7. If I have 6 cookies, I can't eat 7 of them. I can't take 7 away. So I'm going to have to borrow. I'm going to jump over my decimal here and come to the ones place. My 4 will become a 3. And I will add 10 onto 6. So my 6 becomes 10 plus 6, or 16. Now I can do 16 minus 7, which is 9. I'm going to bring my decimal straight down, keep it lined up. 3 minus 5 I'm not able to do, so I come over and borrow. Whoops, let's take that. This becomes a 2. I'm going to add on a 10. So my 3 becomes a 13. 13 minus 5 is 8. And in my tens place, 2 minus 1 is 1. So my answer is $18.93. And since we're working with money, go ahead and label it that way with your dollar sign. Okay. Let's take a look at one more. Let's do number 8. Number 8, it will be really important to make sure you line up those decimals. So I have 9 and 6/10. If I'm going to subtract 4 and 87/100, I have to remember to keep those decimals lined up. When I do that, I end up with an empty space. This empty space represents 0. There's nothing there. So now when I go to subtract, I have 0 minus 7. And I know that I can't do that, so I borrow from my neighbor. The 6 becomes a 5. I add 10 onto the 0, so this is 10. Now I can do 10 minus 7 is 3. 5 minus 8, again I'm going to have to borrow. My 9 becomes an 8. My 5, I add 10 on, so now it's 15 minus 8 is 7. Bring my decimal straight down. 8 minus 4 is 4. Make sure you line up those decimals. Make sure you start with the largest number on top, the larger number minus the smaller number.